They were masters of mystery, creators of timeless fiction, and literary voices that shaped generations. But what happens when the mystery becomes real? When the storyteller becomes the story? What drove Agatha Christie to vanish without warning for 11 days? Did Walden Keys truly leap from the Golden Gate Bridge? Or did he start a new life under a false name? How did Irmgard Keun fake her death and disappear in Nazi Germany? And what really happened to Solomon Northup, a man who escaped slavery and became an abolitionist icon, only to vanish again? And then there's Edgar Allan Poe, found incoherent in someone else's clothes on the streets of Baltimore, and dead days later. No one ever figured out why. Writers weave stories from the unknown, but these are tales they left unfinished. These are the real disappearances of famous authors, and not all of them came back. Welcome back to Missing Persons Archives, where we document the real-life disappearances that continue to haunt families, investigators, and history itself. Some are unexplained, some are unsolved. All are unforgettable. If you enjoy mystery, truth-seeking, and long-forgotten stories that deserve a second look, make sure to subscribe and follow the channel for more. Today, we're taking a deeper dive into a unique category of missing persons: writers. These are individuals who left behind manuscripts, poems, movements, and sometimes nothing at all. Let's begin. Agatha Christie, the 11 days she wouldn't explain. In December of 1926, Agatha Christie was already a household name. Her detective novels had gained worldwide popularity, and her public profile was growing fast. So when she vanished suddenly on the night of December 3rd, it sent shockwaves through Britain. She left her home in Berkshire without telling anyone. No note, no warning. Her abandoned car was found the next morning near a chalk quarry. Inside were her fur coat and driver's license. The search was immediate. Over 1,000 police officers, volunteers, and even airplanes were deployed. Her disappearance became front-page news across Europe. Some feared she had drowned. Others suspected foul play. A few believed it was a clever publicity stunt. 11 days later, she was found, checked into a Yorkshire hotel under the name Teresa Neal, the surname of her husband's mistress. Christie claimed amnesia. Her husband said she had been in a fugue state following a minor crash, but skeptics point out there was no evidence of a crash, and her behavior during the hotel stay seemed calm and composed. To this day, Agatha Christie never explained her disappearance. Not in interviews, not in writing, not even in her autobiography, and perhaps fittingly, the Queen of Mystery left behind one of the most enduring ones of all. Weldon Kees, poet of the Golden Gate. Walden Keys was a modern Renaissance man, poet, critic, jazz musician, painter. By the 1950s, he was a rising figure in America's cultural landscape. But behind his talent was a man plagued by depression, alcoholism, and a difficult divorce. On July 19, 1955, Keys disappeared. His car was found parked near the Golden Gate Bridge, the keys still in the ignition. There was no sign of a struggle, no note, no witness. Given his mental health history, many assumed he jumped to his death. But some of his close friends weren't convinced. Keys had spoken of moving to Mexico and starting over. He had read up on disappearing and reinvention. He even left behind suitcases filled with unpublished poems, as though he intended to return. No body was ever recovered. No conclusive evidence ever surfaced. And Weldon Kees, the man who once wrote of a life that ends and re-begins elsewhere, was gone. Irmgard Keun vanished inside the Third Reich. Before World War II, Irmgard Keun was one of Germany's most celebrated novelists. Her books, often sharply critical of Nazi ideology, were widely banned. In 1936, she fled Germany for exile in Belgium and later the Netherlands. But in 1940, newspapers published reports of her suicide, only it wasn't true. Keun had faked her death using forged papers and returned secretly to Germany under a false identity, reportedly to care for her aging parents. How she pulled it off and how she remained hidden in a totalitarian state that had branded her a dissident remains one of the most baffling and courageous stories in literary history. She resurfaced after the war and eventually began writing again, but her years in hiding were largely unaccounted for. Who helped her? What identity did she assume? And did the Nazi regime ever discover she was alive? To this day, the full story remains hidden, much like Irmgard Keun herself during those terrifying years. Solomon Northup, From Survivor to Shadow. Solomon Northup's story inspired the award-winning memoir 12 Years a Slave. Born a free man in New York in the early 1800s, he was kidnapped in Washington, D.C., and sold into slavery in Louisiana. After 12 years of brutal captivity, he regained his freedom with the help of allies in the North and became a powerful voice in the abolitionist movement, delivering speeches across the country. But in the late 1850s, Northup vanished from public record. Some believe he went undercover to help with the Underground Railroad. Others suspect he was targeted and silenced. No death certificate exists, no confirmed grave. And for a man who had already escaped oblivion once, his second disappearance is even more mysterious. How could someone so visible and vocal vanish so thoroughly? His fate remains unknown. Edgar Allan Poe, A Macabre Final Chapter. No list of mysterious literary disappearances is complete without Edgar Allan Poe. In early October 1849, Poe set out from Richmond to New York but was never seen again by those who expected him. He was discovered delirious in Baltimore, wearing someone else's clothes, babbling the name Reynolds, and completely incoherent. He died just days later. Theories about Poe's final days are endless. Alcoholism, illness, political kidnapping, even rabies. But no hospital records or autopsy exist. Even his death certificate is lost. The truth about Poe's death may be as eerie and unknowable as his most haunting poems. And maybe, just maybe, that's how he would have wanted it. The written word preserves lives, ideas, and voices. But for these 5 authors, it couldn't protect them from vanishing into mystery. Agatha Christie walked away from her life for 11 days and never explained why. Walden Keys may have jumped or simply disappeared to reinvent himself. Irmgard Keun faked her death and vanished into a fascist state. Solomon Northup survived slavery, but may not have survived its legacy. And Edgar Allan Poe left us the most haunting tale of all, his own. These are not just stories. These are unfinished books, unanswered questions, and cold trails that span decades. Thanks for watching Missing Persons Archives. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep these stories alive. And remember, anyone can vanish, even the ones who wrote the stories.